The lipstick we're going to create in today's video is not vegan, it is not cruelty-free, but it is a natural, renewable resource that creates the most amazing red pigment, and it has a history that goes back centuries. We're gonna crush some bugs. So what is cochineal? It's a parasite. It actually grows on a prickly pear cactus. It sucks the juice and the life out of the cactus. It's not the blood that's red, it's the carminic acid. Now the cultivation of cochineal goes back to the Aztecs, what is now southern Mexico. They used it in art, clothing, and cosmetics. I'll get back to that later. When Spain conquered and colonized the Americas, they discovered a red pigment that had never been seen. Around 1523, they exported cochineal back to Europe. So in the past, they had used madder root, kermes bugs, black, vermilion, cinnabar, red iron oxides, but nothing came close to this natural red cochineal, aka carmine, the pigment we call it today. It was such a valuable export for Spain that ships carrying this cochineal pigment, they would be attacked from pirates and smugglers. Even Queen Elizabeth wanted in on the action. They took a ton of it. You can actually see the Earl of Essex here in his red robe, sort of celebrating the fact that they were able to get their hands on this cochineal. This red pigment was used for the iconic British redcoats. Rembrandt used it, Titian used it, Tintoretto used it, but now the only time we hear about cochineal is when it's in food, like a Starbucks Frappuccino. Yes, it is in your food, sometimes. M&Ms, red licorice, strawberry yogurt, but I'm more interested in the makeup, so let's get back to that. So in the 1500s, the Aztecs, when the Spanish colonized, they described what they saw in southern Mexico. What they found were prostitutes. They were more like the geisha in Japan. They really had a particular look that made them show that they were a prostitute. But at that time, it was more like the woman was celebrated for being such. And they were the only ones really allowed to wear makeup in this way. So they would stain their teeth with the cochineal. So red teeth, red lips. They could draw on their forehead with the pigment or on the neck or both. Now, no respectable woman would be seen with this type of makeup. So let's fast forward a little bit, going back to Queen Elizabeth. So we know she liked the toxic stuff. As cochineal made its way to England, it was used as a cheek rouge and as a lip rouge. Then in the 1700s, we see it used in France, like the painting of Madame de Pompadour at her toilette. So they would also make lip rouge using carmine in the Victorian era. And this pigment was extremely popular until the mid-1900s when synthetic red was introduced. Now this was made from a coal tar. This product basically wiped out the entire cochineal industry for the most part, until 1976 when the FDA said it was a known carcinogen. Now the only time we really see it, because it is banned in the US, we do see it in the UK. They use it in these glacé cherries. So here we are back again looking at cochineal as a red pigment to use in cosmetics, in food, and in textiles. Unless you have an allergy to cochineal, it is completely safe. It also promotes the economy because it gives jobs to farmers in Peru, in Mexico, in the United States, in Guatemala. I'm all for the use of carmine. Now that you know a little bit of history behind the cochineal, let's create this lipstick. Now, I'm not a chemist. I barely graduated high school. I just want to know where my makeup products come from. So I started watching tutorials and following books, and it's actually quite an easy recipe. So you can try this at home. You need a few products. You just need the bugs, of course. You need alum, and alum is actually naturally occurring in deserts and volcanic areas. And this is a mordant. This allows the pigment something to stick to. You also need water and washing soda. So we've crushed the bugs. We're grinding this in a mortar and pestle. We're gonna use 4 grams of the cochineal to 300 milliliters of water. So you're gonna heat at 60 minutes at medium-low heat, do not boil. Now, after 60 minutes, you're gonna filter this through a mesh and cloth. I did have a strainer, but I couldn't find my cloth to filter through, so I used a wig cap. So you're gonna transfer that back to the pot, and now we're gonna add 15 grams of the alum. You add this directly to the pot and go ahead and stir. Heat again for 30 minutes, and you're gonna stir this this constantly throughout that time. Now go ahead and transfer to a glass container. We want to check the pH level here. So after I check the pH level, I notice it's a 1, but I wanted to bring in a bowl of the cochineal just with water on its own, and I wanted to compare the pH. So that pH was pretty neutral. It was around a 6 or a 7, but the color difference. So when we added the alum, we have this amazing color transformation. Now it goes from that brick red color to a vibrant sort of fuchsia purplish tone. And I love comparing the two so you can really see, and see it's just based on pH. So when you change the pH in the cochineal, you can get many different colors. I actually have a product from TKB, a pure carmine red. It's such an intense red, so that's why making this lake dye, I decided I wanted to make something a little bit deeper. Now what we need to do is take the washing soda. We're going to make a solution. So you add the powder into water, then you're going to go ahead and pour this into your cochineal pigment water, and you're going to see it effervesce. It's going to bubble. Now you can kind of stir and get rid of these bubbles. I wanted to show it a bit on camera. So yes, just be careful, beware when you pour in the washing soda, it may bubble up a lot. Now we have to check the pH again. It looks like the pH is perfect. It is between a 6, 7, that's where you want it. That's neutral. 1 is alkaline, 1 is acid, and we have a neutral pH. So we're good to go. So you're gonna let the jar set overnight, and you're gonna notice a clear water on top. If it's not clear, you may have to repeat this entire process, but it should be clear. That is the supernatant. You can actually pour off that water. I didn't really have much, so I went ahead and filtered right through a coffee filter. Once that filters through, you can see your pigment here, and you're going to open that filter, lay it on a flat surface, and you have to allow that pigment to dry. This will go overnight. So this is, like I said, a 2-day at least process. But now you're left with these pigment chunks. You're gonna put them into your mortar and pestle, grind them, and here we have our lake dye, our carmine pigment in this amazing, beautiful purple color. Now we're gonna turn it to lipstick. Before we make the lipstick, I'm gonna quickly go through this lipstick base. So to make the lipstick base, I'm gonna use Rayma's book. Do you guys watch Humblebee and Me? She's one of my favorite channels on YouTube. She does science and makeup all the time, 2 of my favorite subjects in one. She has this long wear lipstick base inside, so we're going to follow that recipe. I'm gonna quickly go through this. It's very, very easy to make. So you're gonna need 10 grams of refined beeswax, 3 grams of candelilla wax, 13 grams of castor oil, 13 grams of jojoba oil, 1 teaspoon of magnesium stearate, and 3/4 teaspoon of magnesium myricate. And you're going to pour these in a pot, mix together, then overheat, you're gonna add the 10 drops of vitamin E oil. Now that you have everything mixed, go ahead and pour that into a jar. It only takes less than 30 minutes to go from a liquid to a solid, and you should have quite a few lipsticks to make from this. Now we have our lipstick base. I'm going to show you the 2 pigments that I'm going to use. So of course we made our lake dye pigment. You've seen that bright purple, and we also have carmine from TKB, which is a super bright red. Pretty amazing to see how with the different pH levels you can get so many colors out of cochineal. Seeing this TKB red compared to the lake dye pigment that I made, they're so different in tone. I want to create a lipstick using both of these pigments. So we're going to start with the red carmine. You could easily follow in Rayma's book. She has a recipe for one that's called red dahlia. I went a little rogue on this one, so I decided I wanted the fullest pigment opacity I could possibly get. So I used a teaspoon of the carmine. And I also used 5 grams of the lipstick base that we made. And then I used 3/32 of a teaspoon of titanium dioxide for this particular lipstick. In order to make the lipstick, you have to start with a hot water bath. So you take your beaker, put it into a pan, fill that pan with about 1 inch of water, mix that really well. This is gonna take some time, probably at least 5 minutes of stirring and scraping and stirring some more. You just wanna make sure your pigments are completely mixed into that lipstick base. Otherwise, the lipstick can get very gritty. Now we pour it into a lipstick mold. This usually takes maximum 30 minutes to harden. I often put it in the fridge. I'll even leave it overnight and come back. I have a vintage container here, and I've cleaned this out, and I'm gonna use this and go ahead and put the first lipstick inside. And here is our very first lipstick with the carmine. That color is so stunning. Oh my God, the texture is absolutely incredible. Let's try this one on before we make our next lipstick. I cannot wait to see what this looks like. Okay, I've just used the tiniest bit of cherry lip liner. Look at my nub. This is my favorite red pencil. I basically use it with all of these lipsticks. What I wanted from this lipstick and why I use so much of the pigment is I want that one swipe opacity, and I want a very matte looking lipstick. Let's go ahead and try it on. So far, this feels amazing on the lips. I'm gonna use a lip brush so I can really get those edges. It's interesting, it's not a pure true red like some other colors I'm gonna show you. It's more of a burgundy red. So it's really interesting, the texture of this, I'm noticing as it sits, when I would rub my lips together, at first it felt kind of velvety, but now it feels it's like drying. That's probably Marie's lipstick base because it is a long wearing lipstick base. So it's pretty amazing because now this is going to sort of set on the lips. I think that's stunning. The formula is really nice. The pigment is beautiful. The matte, the opacity. I'm sure that this needs a few more ingredients, but it's just really fun to see this very simple, easy to make recipe, and you have your Cochineal Carmine lipstick. Shall we go on to the next lipstick? I want to create one using my lake dye. Obviously, it's gonna be a very different color. So we're gonna basically use the same exact ingredients. So just like our first lipstick, I used 5 grams of lipstick base, 1 teaspoon of the lake pigment that we made, and then titanium dioxide. Now, that was a bit of a mistake. So I did use titanium dioxide for the first one, and here's the color I ended up with. That is not at all the color that I wanted, so I decided to try to make it using only the lake pigment, no other products inside. So 5 grams of the lipstick base, we melt that down, and then we add in our teaspoon of carmine pigment from the lake dye that we made. Look how deep and beautiful this color is. Again, you have to really stir. I'm trying to get some other camera angles so you can really see it. And the same as we did the first, we're just gonna pour it into a lipstick mold, and I'm gonna put this in another vintage container that I have. And we're gonna try it on and see how different it is from this lipstick. I felt this lipstick deserved a darker look. This lipstick is so beautiful. I cannot wait to try this on. I'm a little nervous about the formula, especially when you make a dark purple lipstick. It often is patchy, so I'm really hoping that this goes on smooth. This is what the color looks like. Okay, she's not so smooth, but look how beautiful that is. She has some shine. Okay, the color is stunning, but the formula, it needs some work. She's very patchy. I think I'm gonna take the rest of my Cochineal pigment lake dye and use this in a 1930s lipstick formula. I have a lot of recipe books from the 1920s up to the 1950s, so I'm thinking to try it in an older formula and see if that works, because I know they would have used carmine then. Now, maybe you did not realize you may have been wearing bugs too. Here's some modern lipsticks that contain carmine. I've actually been wearing it most of this video, and that is MAC Ruby Woo. Iconic, amazing red lipstick. Lady Danger, my favorite orange red of all times, also contains carmine. The legendary Diva lipstick. This is such an iconic shade, and doesn't it look similar to the lipstick we created? This is my favorite drugstore red. Now, I actually did the ads for this one. I did the makeup for the commercials and the advertisements. This is called Red for Me from Maybelline, and I only have about this much left. Red for Me actually was made to work on all skin tones, so you can have a safe bet that if you do want a drugstore red, that this is gonna work on you. And the texture is really good because it's more matte. It's very similar to those MAC formulas I talked about, and maybe that has something to do with the carmine, but I love this lipstick and I do not care that there are bugs inside of it. I wanna keep this forever. And finally, the lipstick that started this whole thing, Rituel de Fille. This is Written in Blood. This color is such a stunning blood red tone. And on their website, they talk about the use of carmine, and it started the whole thing for me just looking into the history, understanding this insect, how the pigment was made. So it's this lipstick that started this whole video here. and now I have totally fallen in love with Cochineal. So what do you think? Would you use Cochineal in your cosmetics? Do you care if it's a bug? Do you care if it's vegan and cruelty-free? I really want to know. Obviously, it doesn't concern me, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts about it. It is really a fascinating subject and a fascinating ingredient with, of course, a lot of history. I hope you enjoyed that. It was so much fun for me. Definitely more science in the next videos. I have a lot of information coming about particular ingredients that I love, and red is definitely one of my favorite colors. See you on the next one.